Well, grand risings, everybody. This is Mystical Ariel here to shake the matrix and expand our minds. Well, look at you. If you're still here, you're not curious anymore. You're committed. You're committed to expanding your mind, So we talked about recognizing the fire, seeing that you're in initiation, not punishment. Fire. And we've also went into working with the fire, interference at a threshold, heart, brain, coherence, somatic integrations. But it's about what happens because of that, not just inside of you, but even around you. Because there comes like a point in your awakening where it kind of stops being just about your personal peace. And it starts touching the collective field around you. And then the next thing you know, you stop asking, how do I survive this? And you start asking, what does my signal do to the world around me? So let's start here for a second. See, your journey has not been private. Yes, it's been internal, and yes, it's been lonely at times, but it has never been insignificant, not whatsoever. Understand this, that every time you choose to sit with your fear, instead of projecting it, you shifted probability. Every time you broke an old pattern, instead of repeating it, you altered a timeline. And every time you choose love when you could have chosen revenge, bitterness, or numbness, you change the field. You may feel like, I'm just one person. I'm just trying to get my life together. But from a larger perspective, you are a node in a network. You are part of a nervous system of humanity. And your coherence does not stay inside your skin, it radiates. This is why your awakening has been so intense. Because you're not just breaking cycles for you. You're breaking them for everyone connected to you. Ancestrally, energetically, relationally, you're the point where the story changes. And that's why it felt heavy. See, you were carrying the weight of the multiple generations of patterning and choosing to do something different. And it's not easy. Let's talk about one of the main arenas where this shows up. Because it's one thing to be calm alone in your room, and another entirely to stay in coherence when someone is pressing every button you have. See, awakening doesn't mean you stop being triggered at all. Trust me. Triggers just keep being in your face. And even the more you waken up, the more you go deeper. The more the system tries to pull you back in. So you don't stop being triggered, but it means trigger becomes a mirror, not a master. You think about some of the hardest people in your life right now. Just, the ones who don't understand your awakening. They try to pull you back into your old identity. And they react when you set boundaries or mirror back your deepest unhealed material. See, in the old way of seeing, you'd say, they are the problem. But from a higher perspective, they are the curriculum. They are the live exam of everything you say you're learning. They are. That's what I notice it as. I teach this stuff here because I walk through the fire with it. To even come to the place to write it down. To even come to the place to get on here and say, hey, this is what's going on. Because I've been going through the live exam every single day. And I'm learning. I'm learning not to have this world torment me. I'm learning to not, where it's still an idea. And where it's actually what I teach is fully in action. Then when I come and I teach it to you guys, I go through it again. Because even as the words come and I'm speaking them, they're piercing within me. And showing me highlights of other things and shadows to press through. And not press through, but to unite with. So it teaches me where it's just still an idea still. Like, oh, that area of life, that's still just an idea. I got to figure that one out still. And where in each relationship is like a tuning fork to bring out your peace. And some bring out your unhealed parts, and both are teachers. But here's the key. You're no longer required to keep sacrificing your nervous system to stay connected. Love does not mean self-abandonment. Awakening does not mean you tolerate everything. See, there's those of us that we learn to tolerate everything to the point we couldn't anymore. We'd put it in different outlets. Whoa, those outlets are magical though. See, what awakening means is you can see the pattern in the other without losing the truth of yourself. And sometimes love looks like staying and responding differently. Sometimes love looks like walking away. The test isn't whether you keep everything and everyone happy. The test is, can you stay aligned with your deepest truth while staying open-hearted even if distance is required? On this path, boundaries become something deeper than just saying no. They become energetic architecture. You start to understand my field is sacred space. What I allow into it, what I agree to carry, what I give my attention, time, and body to, shapes my reality. On old settings, you might have overgiven to avoid being abandoned, over-explained to avoid being misunderstood, overperformed to feel worthy. Awakening exposes those patterns. You realize, I was calling that love, but it was actually fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough. So as you awaken, you start saying no to what drains you, not from anger, from clarity. You stop engaging in conversations that only exist to pull you back into the old story. You stop justifying your awakening to people committed to misunderstanding it. And you stop handing out access passes to people who haven't earned trust yet. And when you do, you feel guilty at first because your old programming says being spiritual means being endlessly available. Being loving means being endlessly forgiving. But no. Being spiritual means being in truth. Being loving means being in integrity. And you can bless someone and still not let them walk through your inner house with muddy shoes. Your boundaries are not rejection. They are how you protect the coherence that took your years to build. And now we're moved into the next layer, design, because once you're stabilized, enough to not be constantly in survival, you get to ask new questions. If I'm not living as reaction to trauma, if I'm not living to satisfy old programming, what do I actually want to build? And most people never get here. They live and die in reaction. Reacting to bills, reacting to family expectation, reacting to fear, reacting to whatever the world throws that day. But you are beginning to live from signal, from inner architecture. And what kind of relationships match your new level of coherence? What kind of work or service expresses your true frequencies? What kind of environment supports your nervous system and soul? This isn't about fantasy. This is about aligned design. Instead of what can I get, you start asking, what really is natural for who I truly am? You realize if your nervous system is constantly under siege, your creativity dries up, your intuition goes quiet, your vision shrinks. So you adjust your life, not from entitlement, but from responsibilities. Responsibilities to the signal you carry. You might change your schedule, you might change your environment, you might change the way you show up in your work. You stop building a life that constantly puts you back in survival and start building one that lets your true signal stay online. And now we widen the lens even more, because as you embody this, you become something rare in the collective, a stabilizer. Most people amplifying whatever they touch. If they're in fear, they spread more fear. If they're in anger, they spread more anger. If they're in confusion, they spread more confusion. You're learning to be different. You're learning to feel the chaos, witness the fear, acknowledge the grief. And without becoming a transmitter of more of the same, you become a tuning fork for coherence. You walk into a room and people feel safer without knowing why. You hold space for someone break down without collapsing into it with them, and you speak truth into situations. Not to dominate, but to clarify. You're not trying to save the world, you're holding frequencies that remind the world there is another way to be. Your life becomes the evidence, and people might not understand your language, but they will feel. I don't know what it is about you, but when I'm around you, I feel more like myself. That is you as field. That is you as signal. That is you as a spark of source remembered. Your awakening is no longer just about you. It impacts the whole network. Relationships become mirrors and initiations, not just comfort or conflict. Boundaries become spiritual life, architecture, not selfishness. Life becomes something you design from coherence, not constant survival. And you begin to recognize yourself as a stabilizing signal in a very chaotic world. You are not finished. Awakening is not a one-time moment. It is a living process. Layers will still rise. Old patterns will still occasionally knock, but your relationship to them has changed. You used to see them as proof you were broken. Now you see them as invitations to choose coherence again, to choose truth again, to choose love again. The fire is still part of your life, but now you're not just walking through it, you're carrying a torch. You're lighting a path for others, even if you don't realize it yet, and you still keep discovering over and over again that what you truly are cannot be burned. Not at all. So remember that. Peace and love. We'll see you guys next time.